Hello there, Damien Mears here. I'm going to show you today how to create a user control for drawing pie charts that's kind of bindable in XAML, supports animation and so on in Xamarin Forms using SkiaSharp to do the various different segments of the pie chart. So I'm going to start by creating a new project, and it's going to be cross-platform, obviously, Xamarin. Let's call it Circle Demo. Blank application. I'll use a portable class library, which is what I prefer. So starting completely from scratch. And I'll be running using the Microsoft Windows or Universal app just because it's faster. At the end I will demo it running on Android and iOS just to see it working. So I'll set my main project as being this the Universal one, startup project, and make sure I'm building it. Okay, Control-Shift-B to build. I do have ReSharper installed, so if you see some behaviors that are not supported out of the box, specifically around refactoring, it's likely because I've got ReSharper installed. So most of the stuff I'm going to be doing here is going to be in the, in fact I think everything is going to be in the main portable project here. So I'm going to create a folder called controls. And inside that I'm going to create my class, which is going to be the circle class. And it's going to derive from the content view Xamarin Forms class. Make it public. Okay, and I'll create a constructor. Alt insert constructor, and let's just set the background color. Let's just start off with this, very simple, equals aqua, of course. Now let's make use of that in our main page. So I'm going to create a stack layout, vertical stack layout, and we'll put the circle, well, it's not actually going to be a circle to begin with, it's just going to be a square. Control KD to reformat. So it's going to say controls circle. Alright, and now I think maybe ReSharper is asking if I want to generate this namespace, which I did, which is the namespace for the controls folder and with the circle inside it. And I'm going to give it a width and a height. You don't actually assign the width, you assign the width request, and then it decides what the Xamarin Forms decides what the final width is going to be. Same with the height. Okay, I'm going to hit F5 now to run that, and we should see a aqua square. First time it's going to take a little bit of time to run. There we go, there's our aqua square. So let's make this a circle now. So the way I'm going to do that, as I mentioned before, is to use Skia. So Skia is a 2D drawing. Oops, sorry. There we go, and let's put that here. Skia is a 2D drawing package, and there's a SkiaSharp for Xamarin Forms package. And Charles Petzold, kind of a guru in documentation and so on, in Windows especially, has created some great tutorials on using it. So we're going to kind of use that as a basis, as a starting point. First of all, I'm going to add the NuGet package to my project for dealing with Skia, which it's from Xamarin, but it's just not there by default. SkiaSharp views.forms is what I want, and I'll insert that into everything. Alright, now that it's installed, I can go to my control And if I just look at the basics, the documentation here, we can see drawing a simple circle, and we'll just start with that kind of a starting point. So in the constructor, it sets up the contents, and that's what we'll do. We'll get rid of the existing one. Import all those packages. So it's essentially creating a canvas on which it's going to draw. It's got a method here that's called to paint the canvas, and we set the contents of that canvas. So we'll create this method, and I'll copy paste the code to draw a circle. Here we go. So it's going to use a paint, which I'll need to copy or set up. The canvas is coming from the information that's passed in. It's complaining about loss of precision here because I'm dividing by 2 instead of a floating point number, integer instead of a float. And I guess this should be called args for it to work. And now the paint. So here we go, we've got the paint set up. So this is just a kind of a starting point, and then we'll go obviously beyond that to do the segments of a circle, or the pie chart. I prefer to use var. Alright, I'm going to hit F5 to run this, and hopefully we'll have ourselves a circle. Alright, kind of like a circle, that'll do. So now what I want to do is have a series of segments that make up the circle, and each segment is maybe have a different color, maybe have a different radius, and obviously a different sweep of the circle, number of degrees. So I'll create a class called segment, and define the properties on it. So we have the color, we have the sweep of degrees, and the radius. I'm going to use it as essentially a percentage of the possible maximum radius. So it's going to be from 0 to 1. Alright, and we're going to have ourselves a property that's the set of segments. We'll say iList of segments. We'll call it segments. So I know that this isn't going to be bindable. You know, if you're watching this, you'll recognize that, but that's not so important right now. I'll get there eventually. So now, instead of doing this draw circle, we want to go through every segment and draw it. And the way we're going to do that is by looking at another example from Charles Petzold, which is drawing arcs. So I'm just going to go down until I find the right example. Here we go, we've got some examples where it's kind of doing what we're doing, but we want ours to be bindable, you know, from Xamarin, a proper kind of reusable control. So it starts off by getting the center of the rectangle. And also working out the radius. We don't have any kind of offsets, so I'm going to get rid of all that code there. So the radius is essentially going to be the smallest of the edges of the rectangle that we're drawing in, height divided by 2. And then we've got the rectangle into which we're going to draw the circle with the various different parts. So for each element in the segments collection, we want to draw ourselves a segment. So there's a load of code in here for doing all kinds of stuff, but we don't really care about a lot of it. It's drawing outlines of the segments and so on. What we do care about is the start angle. So I'm going to say start angle equals 0 as a float, and the sweep angle is going to be, so we're going to go through every segment We don't care about align paint. We do care that we've got the path we're drawing in, and we've got the paint that's being used for filling it. So for filling the segment, and then we move to the center and we arc. So the arc we want to do is from the start angle, which we're going to update, and then this is going to be the segment dot sweep. And let's set up the paint. And the paint is going to be the segment's color, and then we're going to convert it to the Skia color that's supported. And the one final thing we're going to do is actually draw the path. There. So that should actually draw it, and so it'll go through every segment and draw the segment. And I'm not updating the start angle. I need to update the start angle with the sweep. Segment.sweep. And I'm starting to think that sweep isn't a great angle, a great name. I'm going to rename it to sweep angle. Maybe I'll just call it angle. Yeah. I'll call it sweep angle. Naming is hard. There we go. Alright, and the only other thing is I'm not taking into account the radius here of the segment. So the center is obviously never going to change, but the radius in the box I'm drawing in will change depending on the radius of the segment that we want to use. So I'm going to times this by segment radius. So that should mean that every segment potentially has a radius of the maximum, which would be if the radius was 1, all the way down. It says that it's never instantiated, and that's quite correct, and that's because we're not instantiating it. So I've probably made some mistakes here, but we'll go back. I'm going to go, once I run, we'll see what they are and fix them. Let's go to here. So we need to specify the segments that are in the circle. So we'll do that using the other syntax for setting properties, which is dot segments. So here we're defining the segments, and we'll start off with 3 segments. And the first one is going to be a color of blue and a sweep angle of, let's say, 90 degrees. And a radius of 1, but I'm going to set the default radius to 1 so I don't have to specify it if I don't want to. And that's that. So we'll do 3 of these. Control KD to reformat. Alright, the second one's color is going to be, find a nice color, blue violet, absolutely, definitely blue violet, and we'll make its sweep angle of 45 degrees, and we'll set the radius to half of the possible radius. And then the final one, what color are we going to use here? Fire brick, obviously fire brick. Actually, we've got blue violet and blue, well, that'll do. Sweep angle of 90, that's good enough. Alright, I'm going to hit F5 now to build and run. Let's see what happens. Okay, and we have an exception. And the exception is something about parsing. Let's look at my XAML. I have a debug option set, which is not very useful at the moment, which is I don't have the just my code. And I do want the just my code. Alright, that'll hopefully give us better exceptions. Alright, let's have a look here. What have I done wrong? Nothing obvious. Let's try running again and see if I can get a better exception. Segments is null or not enumerable. Okay, I think I need to initialize the segments list, sorry. So let's go back to here and we'll say equals new list of segments. F5 again. Input string is not in the correct format. Oh, 0.f. I'm sure you saw that. Let's try that again. F5. Yeah, it's just because it had loaded the generated file. Yay, it's working. We have our 90 degrees, our segment, which is half the radius, and then the other, I think 90 degrees or whatever it's set to. So you might think this is done, we're done here, but we're far from done. The first thing is that these properties that I've created, or the property, specifically the segments property, is not bindable. And what I'm going to do now is move from a main page with the elements, the segments defined here, into segments defined in a view model. So let's move to that, and I want to use binding to bind them, and I won't be able to with how I've done things right now. So we're going to create ourselves a new folder again. We'll call it view models. We're going to have a view model called main view model. Make it public, and we'll need ourselves a view model locator to be able to locate the view model. Obviously, if you use a framework like MVVM Lite, you won't need to do this. Never sure whether it's OR or ER on locator. Go with OR today. It's going to have a single member called main view model. I'll call it main, and I'm going to use a what's it called, this new syntax. Okay, I'll start off with this. I can't remember the syntax, it's kind of new. I've lost the name of the variable there. We move it to a backing property, and now I'm going to say I want to return main if it's already defined, so we're going to use lazy loading. Otherwise I want to say main equals new main view model, and now hopefully it'll let me move to using expression body. There we go, that's what I wanted, expression body. Same there. So it's lazy loading, so if the main is already there, it returns it, otherwise it does it. Obviously not totally pointless in this example, but it's just a pattern I like to use to stop loads of stuff being done as the program initially launches. So we have our main view model locator, so now we can go back to my main page, and we'll set the binding context of the page to be x:static, and it's, we call it view models, and it's view model locator main. Now it's going to ask me if I want to introduce this namespace, which I do, so we now have our view models namespace. So now our binding context for this page is this main, an instance of this main view model here. And so let's define ourselves a public list of segments, and it's call it segments. And we'll initialize it here. It's empty to begin with. So now I can bind my circle to that. So I'll get rid of this list of segments here. And we'll say segments equals binding to the segments property. So they're setting the segments property on the circle is being bound to the segments property on the view model. Now this won't work, so I'm going to hit F5 and run. And the reason it won't work is because I've not defined the segments property on the circle to be a bindable object. It's just using a traditional C# property. Actually, I think the reason it's falling over there is because well, anyway, it doesn't really matter. What I'm going to do next is modify this property, or to be a bindable property, using, surprisingly, public static read-only segments bindable property. Segments property. So if you're not familiar with this stuff, I recommend looking it up. Not segments, but bindable property.create. Alright, now look at the parameters here. First of all, we have the property name, and the property name is segments. I know it's not new anymore, but being able to say name of. The return type is going to be, I'm going to say it's actually going to be a enumerable of segment. So that's the type of the property. The declaring type, well, that's the circle. Default property, I'm going to say is a new list of segments. It's going to be the default value, default property. And the final thing I want to do is be told when the property changes. So on, what's it called? Property changed. So we'll say on segment property changed, segments property change. And the reason I want to do that is because I want to redraw the circle if the segments have changed. The segments property has changed. So the way I'm going to redraw it is this bindable is actually the circle. So first of all, I can say circle equals bindable, and I'm going to invalidate the content of the circle. Now you think I could just say invalidate layout, but that doesn't actually work. I need to say circle.content, and I know that the circle content is one of these SK canvas views, so I can cast it. And then invalidate surface. Alright, now the last thing that I need to do is make the segments property no longer a traditional C# property, but instead make use of this bindable property mechanism. The way I can do that is the get is going to return the get value on the segments property, and it's the wrong type, so hopefully it'll offer to cast it for me, which it does. And the set is going to do set value of the segments property. So that, again, this is all kind of boilerplate stuff for when you're dealing with bindable properties. Something's wrong there. I think I need a semicolon there. And anyway, let's move it all into expression body members, because it's the hot new coolness, and it is a lot nicer to look at. Alright, so I think I'm done. Except I don't have any segments in my segment list, but let's just try running this and see if we end up with an empty screen. If we end up with a runtime error, if we end up with a runtime error, then it means that I've screwed something up. If we end up with a blank screen, then everything's good. Yay, blank screen. Alright, so let's now initialize the segments in the main view model. So we're going to go this step by step. So first of all, I'm going to make this bindable. Then I'm going to make it support an observable so that we can modify them at runtime, observable collection. And then I'm going to make it support modifying properties on the segment. So we'll go step by step. So let's first of all initialize this list of segments. Color equals color dot something interesting. dark goldenrod, absolutely, definitely dark goldenrod. Radius we'll make 90 again as before. We'll leave the, sorry, not the radius, the sweep angle 90 degrees. We'll leave the default radius. Let's do our second one. Segment with the color of, oh, so many to choose from. Dodger blue, I saw Dodger blue there, that's a good one. Dodger blue. Radius of 0.5 and the 0.5f and the sweep angle, let's make it 180. And then finally we have the final segment, and we'll make the radius 45 degrees. No, not the radius, the sweep angle. Sweep angle 45. Color, what will it be? What will it be? Let's go right down to the very end. We'll say, here we go, yellow green. Okay, I think we're good there, except don't need those brackets. Let's see what happens now. Yay, seemed to have worked. Yes, so this was the starts off here, so that was the 90, 180, 45. This one has half the radius. So that's good. What that means is I can use binding now, but what it doesn't mean is that I can't use I can't, if I was to make, let's make this an observable collection. If I was to go in and try and modify this observable collection, maybe as a result of pressing a button, then I'd be screwed. Should I do that? Yeah, let's just do that. Let's just to make it real. So so that we're going to have a command that's invoked by pressing a button, and that command is button. Now let's say change segments. It's command. And we'll initialize it inside the constructor. It's not got the right name. Okay. New command, and it's just going to say change. And create that method. Yeah, I know it's misspelt, so we factor that. Command, there we go, and then in our change segments, let's get rid of one of them. So remove. Let's remove the second one. Reason remove that. Yeah, remove that. Alright, and now I'll make the main page have a button on it that invokes that command. Text equals change. And the command is going to be the binding to the command I just created. And it can't see it. Did I not make it public? Or maybe it's just because I didn't save it. I want my view model. In fact, I made it private. That's kind of silly. Okay, so now I should be able to, in my view model, see it. There we go. So now when I press on that button, this the I guess I hit Control-Shift-B to build. Let's get rid of this. When I press that button, it'll change the collection, but you won't see the collection change. All change. Nothing happens. Oh, yeah, I pressed it too many times that I ran out of items in the collection. Okay, but that doesn't really matter. The point was it didn't change. Now, let's actually, before I do this, let's actually just assign a different value to the segments, and that way it will change because we're handling the property changed event on the segments property. So rather than modifying an element of the existing collection, let's just assign to a completely new segment, a new collection. But we'll just change the colors so that you can see. Now, one thing that I'm thinking is that we didn't clear the canvas, so this maybe will kind of overwrite the existing one, which is kind of okay, I guess. Angle is 45. Oh, we'll leave that one like it is. Let's change the angle of this one though to 0.8. So the radius of 0.8. So I'm going to hit F5 now. Alright, let's press the button. Nothing happened. Nothing happened at all. Alright, well, I'm going to set the breakpoint on the changed event in the circle to see if I can work out what went wrong. Let's see if that's being fired. So it's being fired when it's being set up to begin with. Okay, now if I hit all change, it's not being fired. It's interesting. So let's first of all just double check my view model, what I'm doing. Oh, it's probably the binding mode on the here, binding segments. It's probably only doing it once. Let's try to one way. What is the default? No, it is one way. From the source, the view model. No, that's right. Well, let's try assigning it anyway, just to see. Let's try. F5 to run. Okay, that's the initial assignment. Press the button. Nothing happened. Alright, let's look and see. What am I doing wrong? Oh, I know what I'm doing wrong. Yeah, it's a view model, but I've not made it implement iNotify property changed. Oh, yes, I'm sure that you saw that. I'm absolutely sure that you saw that. So the segments will need to use a backing property, and on the set we say notify, sorry, on property change. Alright, F5 again, let's see what happens now. F5 to run again, let's change it. Okay, we've got the property changing, and it changed. Woohoo! Let's run that again without the breakpoint so that we can actually see it changing live. Alright, so it did change. So we've got, and that's happening because we've got this, we're using the bindable property mechanism. But the problem is that there's nothing, it detects when the segments property itself is changing, but it doesn't detect changes of the collection, even though I've got an observable collection here. So this doesn't work because it doesn't detect, oops, it doesn't detect changes to the collection, and that's because I'm not signing up for notification of modifications to the collection. In fact, I don't even know that it's a observable collection. So let's say if the new value, oh, actually no, I'm going to use var observable collection equals new value as observable collection of segments, and then if the value is not null, I know there's a syntax for doing this, new syntax for C#7 where you, but anyway, I'm going to leave it like this. So if it's not equal to null, and we have an observable collection, so we want to be notified when it changes. So we say observable collection dot collection change. Is it? Yeah, there we go. On, and we'll say on equals on segments collection changed. All right. Create that method. Why is it not observing, asking me to, oh, it's not because I want to add to it. So I couldn't see why I wasn't offering to create a property, a method, sorry. Alright, so once we do this, then we do the same thing as before, we invalidate. So let's Control Alt M. Nope, that's not it. Let's create ourselves a method called segments changed, or let's say update segments, update circle even. Basically I just want to refactor out this code so that I can reuse it. Oh, we need, of course we need the circle as a parameter. And I'm wondering how I'm going to get hold of the circle in here. So let's, maybe the sender is going to be the view model. I think I'm going to have to do something, maybe wrap it up. Anyway, let's see here. Let's look at I just want to see if I can get hold of the circle to invalidate it. So let's just debug.writeLine. I've solved this before. I know I have. I can't remember off the top of my head how I solved it. Let's just writeline the events here. So I'm going to go to my view model to make sure. So when I click on the button, I'm removing the second element of the collection, which should trigger this here. While I don't forget, I'm going to just handle the case where the collection itself changes. So the old value is also a observable collection. So if the old value is observable collection, then I want to remove my event handler. So that's just to kind of clean up. Alright, I'm going to hit F5 now and we'll look around and see what's been passed to us in this event to see if we can get hold of the circle. Alright, so the sender is the list, the event contains the list, yeah, so there's nothing useful there, and I want to get hold of the circle to evaluate it, to invalidate it. So what are my possibilities here? I could create a class that has a circle, that has the event handler in it. The problem is this is a static, so I can't get hold of the segment. Oh, I could have a method. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make this a method on the circle, and it can, obviously I can't access it there yet, but then I can say content invalidate circle. So I can just invalidate the contents. Why does that work? Oh, it's because I'm not casting it. So we've made it a method now on the circle, so it does have access to itself. And then from here, I'm actually going to unfactor this. Unrefactor it, defactor. Now I can just say circle dot on segments change. There we go. So hopefully now when I run it, it's going to remove the elements. Still not clearing the canvas, so we may see some stuff being overlaid. Let's see what happens. I'm going to hit F5. Okay, let's press the button. Alright, it moves around. Yeah, probably just remove this. So I'm going to, what can I do? Let's just make it clear the canvas and every time. So that we see it. So we got rid of the middle item. So now we're properly supporting in the case where we're using a observable collection in the view model. But what about if we modify, rather than changing the segments, removing an element, let's, instead of that, let's take the first element of the first segment and change its color to, wait for it, color, there we go, deep blue sky. There we go. Let's just make sure that the color that we're using by default actually is here. Yeah, darker golden rod. So we're changing the color of the first element, but as we'll see, nothing's going to happen. And hopefully by now you can see why. Nothing happens. And the reason, well, there's a couple of reasons why. One is because I'm not in the segment. Nothing is indicating that it's changing, so there's no view model change. So I'm going to create myself a class called segment view model. I wonder how I should do this. I'm just thinking aloud here. Actually, I'm gonna make this a bindable. The properties on this are bindable properties. So in order to do that, this has got to derive from something that can support bindable properties. So just as we did up here with this bindable, this collection, the segments property, I'm gonna do that for all the various different properties here. So we're gonna have color, sweep radius, sweep angle, and radius. So this is going to be color property. It's going to be a sweep angle property. And radius property. The property is going to be, first one is going to be called color, second one is going to be called sweep angle, third one is going to be called radius. The type of each one is going to be color. Oops. Let's make this a bit bigger. Type of color, type of float. So these are the corresponding types. And the parent object is a segment. The default value for color is going to be, let's say, color dot white. No, definitely not white. How could I even think it would be white? In fact, it's going to be forest green. There we go, and we'll have the property changes. The default for the sweep angle, let's say it's going to be 90 degrees. And the default radius is going to be 1 as before. Alright. And in each of these, in each case, what we want to do is invalidate the circle in which this is a segment. And it does. So I'm going to create a method here. We'll call it on. let's call it on segment property changed, and we'll use the same one for all of them. Let's put it below the properties. I need to get hold of the circle. I don't think I can do it. In fact, I'm sure I can't do it. So what I'm going to do is create a public property on this called parent, should we say. And then I can say I want to invalidate the circle. So I don't think I can do. Let's see if I can do this. I don't think I'll be able to access it, the content, but who knows. So when any of these changes happen, oh, it's a static, but I have the bindable, I have myself. So var segment and I can say bindable.parent segment. Alright, so that will invalidate it. So when any of these properties change, it's going to invalidate the circle and have the whole circle redrawn. You could probably do some optimization. In fact, you could definitely do some optimization where if only the color changes, you would just redraw that one. But this is good enough for now. So the get is going to do value of the color property and cast it to color, and set is going to set value on the color property value. What isn't it like? Do I need a semicolon? Yeah, I need a semicolon. Alright, we're going to do the same thing for these other guys, sweep angle and radius. Sweep angle property. Get rid of this. And it's a float. I'm not sure I saved much time by copy pasting it over. Let's copy paste this one for the final one, which is radius. And that uses the radius property. Alright. The only thing I haven't done here is set that parent property. So when the segments property changes for the new value, I need to so I'm just thinking aloud here. I need to, for each element, I need to make sure that the circle is set. So the parent property is set. So for each, it's going to be an enumerable of segments. Enumerable of segment, that's the new value. Segment dot parent equals circle. The same thing here for the collection changed. I need to just go through each element in the collection and make sure that its parent is set. So I don't know how to do that. So we've got e dot new items. And that's going to be this. Alright, so now the segment properties will respond to being changed and hopefully update the UI. Control-Shift-B to build. Let's hit F5. doesn't like it. What doesn't it like? Object has not been set. Okay, so it looks like it's dealing with this when the content is null. So let's have a look and see. This is here. Alright, so I'm going to just essentially bail if the segment okay. I love SharP for this kind of thing. It's using null propagation to do the whole thing. Let's try running a game. And then change the property, the color. Yay. Alright, so this is almost done. What I'm going to do next is just show how you can use these to draw things like auto animate. I'll have a quick go at that, and also I'll just show some examples where maybe you have a ring rather than circles. So the first thing is the ring. So let's just let's say that when we click on this, we're just going to remove everything from the remove all. Oh, dot clear is it? Okay, and we'll add a new segment. Actually, just use the property continuously segment. We'll add a new segment. Sweep angle equals now. Here's the funny thing actually. If I say 360 for the sweep angle, oops. If I say 360 degrees for the sweep angle, you're going to see nothing when I press the button. Oh, didn't like it. New items is null. Okay, let's deal with that then. It's because I cleared it. So, as I was saying, there's a kind of a weirdness with the way it works. Still doesn't like it. What's wrong here? Oh, if new items equals null, return. Can't convert. Do I actually need to do the... So E is what, a read-only list? Okay, let's say it's a read-only list. Actually, what's it called? It's of type. It's an I list. Let's try this again. Unable to cast specialized read-only list of type connection list. So why is it a read-only list? I cleared and then I added a segment to the segments list. I wonder why it's a read-only list. Huh. Okay, I'm wondering whether I need to actually. So let's just do this, and we'll say we'll define the type, which is segment. So as long as I can enumerate through it, I should be good. Alright, so it went blank. And the reason it goes blank is if you look at the SkiaSharp documentation, you'll see that it does it modulo 360 degrees. So the way I do it, instead of saying 360, let's just say 359.9999 F. Alright. Oh, it still didn't like it. Strange. Yeah, that kind of rings a bell. Maybe it rounds it if I do it to too many digits. There we go. So that's just a kind of a little quirk. The way I'm actually going to fix this, I'm going to say 360 here. And in the circle, I'm going to just, if any of the segments is 360, then I'm going to say 359.99F colon. So essentially, if it's 360, oh, it doesn't like the loss of precision, but that'll do. I don't care. So I'm going to handle it in the circle rather than forcing the caller to deal with it. I'm going to remove the canvas clear now here as well. And what I want to do is show how you can overlay circles to do kind of, I think, interesting things. So rather than using a stack, just using a stack layout, I'm going to use a grid here with the similar kind of width request of 200 and a height request. And I'm going to draw two circles, one over the other. So we're going to have just one row and one column, so hopefully I can do it just like this. What doesn't it think is closed? I'm just not closing it like that. Alright. Actually, the second one I'll define in line, just because it's easier. So we're just going to do just one segment. What doesn't it like? Properties set more than once, of course it is. I don't want to bind the second circle's segments. And we'll say the sweep angle is 360 and the radius is 0.9. So hopefully what this will do is say 0.8 is draw a circle on the outside and then another circle on the inside overlaid. So I'm hitting F5. So as a stack layout is not closed, that's because I screwed up my XAML. F5 again. So there we go. We've got actually we've still got the let's click on change here. So that we have the circle on the outside and the circle on the inside. And if I was to make the inside one white, the background color of the form, then essentially it looks like you've got an element on the outside. And let's just one final thing before I move on to animation. We'll make this one's radius 90 as well. sorry, 1 as well, so that it's not filled in. So we have 90 plus 90 plus 45. So we have 360. 360 minus 90 minus 180 minus 45. This is going to give me, oh, sorry, 45 degrees left. I should have been able to work that out. Don't judge me. Just not going. If I tried to work it out when I was live here, I would have screwed it up. So dark orange is going to be the color for that. So if I hit F5 now, we'll see the various different rings, or various different elements of the ring having different colors. So there we go. In fact, the change isn't, the change isn't really relevant now. But so if I hit 5 again, we see the ring there. So one final thing I'm going to do is use animation. So when I click on the change, so how am I going to do this? I'm loath to use code behind. The way I would normally do it, actually the way I'm going to normally do it is the way I'm going to do it. So I'm going to use a property on the view model, which is invoked via callback. Yeah, it's kind of overkill, but I'm going to do it like this anyway. So I'm going to use a lambda. I'm going to call it refresh. And when the user taps on change, I'm going to just call the refresh callback. And in the code behind on the view, so the fundamental issue, the animations, to do animations you need a Xamarin Forms infrastructure, and in the view model you don't really have that. And I like to keep my view model totally agnostic as to what's happening on the UI. So when I click on the button, I'm going to call refresh, which is going to call back into the view layer, and that's going to do an animation. So that's where I come to here, to my main page. So here I'm going to. So sometimes I will drop into view model, into the code behind for this kind of thing. I'm not totally averse to doing that, but I just don't like it in general. But since I don't really know how to do animations otherwise, I'm going to do it like this. All right. So in order to animate, I'm just going to go back to just having a single circle. Control, actually I want to animate, I want to Control C that. So we just have a single circle with let's make it a nicer color than this. And call it aquamarine. And I'm actually going to animate the radius, but I'm going to have to give it a name to be able to, for it to be accessible from code behind. So let's go to the code behind, and so now I don't remember let's see if I can work it out without looking it up in the documentation, the whole animation thing. I don't remember how to do it. Let's just. Yeah, okay, I'm going to look it up. I have done it kind of recently, but still, I just don't remember it off the top of my head. Alright, simple animations. That'll do. Code example, please. Custom animations, I want to do a custom animation. Alright, so this I think will do. So we want to go from 0 to 1, I think. And we want to set the circle, I think is the name of the circle dot radius equals v, so that's going to animate. So I can't convert it. Yeah, maybe I should have used doubles, but let's just cast it. And then we want to commit the animation. This is the, so it goes over 2 seconds, I guess. I think I can just get rid of this. Let's just try getting rid of all of this. Let's see what happens. F5. Let's see if I press the button. Nothing happens. I think it's because it overdrew the existing animation, or the existing circle. So I'm going to set the initial radius in the XAML to 0. Okay, let's try it. Oh, nothing's happening. I wonder why. Let's first of all make sure that my callback is being, my do animation callback is being invoked. Certainly is. Let's check the parameters of this. So these actual parameters aren't necessary. So the default. Okay, let's look at the commit. We have the name, we have the length. So why is that not working? Let's try setting a callback here. Actually, let's look at the circle of radius. Is that a property? Yes, it is. So it should be invalidating the surface of the circle when the radius is changed. Okay, I'm going to hit F5 again, see if something comes out of it. So this radius, no, it jumped up to 1. So the radius is being set, which is kind of, but I'm still not seeing it here. Let's look at the XAML, see if there's something there. So I have my circle sweep, radius is 0, let's say radius is 0.5. Let's see if I see it. I've hit F5. Alright. Nothing's changing. Let's have a look again. So I'm probably going to pause at some point to try and work out what's going wrong, so you don't have to watch me debugging it. Okay, I'm going to just try using the code example from before. maybe it's because I didn't specify a easing thing. What are these parameters here? Okay, let's go back to the previous one. Let's just try running that now. F5. Still not working. So is it because the radius, when the radius changes, it should invalidate it. Okay, if all else fails, add some logging. Let's debug when it's here. I shall just use a segment radius. F5. Let's look at the output so that we can see what's happening. So it drew it once with a radius of 0.5. Okay, it's not drawing it again. That's interesting. So something is causing it not to redraw. So let's try adding some logging here to see whether when the segment's radius is changed, whether it's actually invalidating the surface or not. Maybe the, actually I'll just do it here and we'll just look and see whether we have a segment apparent when it's being invalidated. So the segment's parent has not been set initially. Okay, I hit F5 until it runs. Okay, now I'm going to set the breakpoint and we'll see when I press the button. Alright, the parent's not being set. Well, that's good. So why am I not succeeding in setting the parent for the segment? So when the segment is changed, so when the segment is so initially set up, I should be setting each segment's parents. So why is that property not being set? Surely we should have this on segments property set. Changed to call. Maybe it's because it's initialized here and then just elements added to it. And so the parent is never set. Now, let's see if there's another event I can subscribe to. Property changing, coerce value, default value creator. Could try that. Default value creator. Oh, we got the bindable object. Woohoo! So there we go. That's what I want. It's got an observable collection. And the circle is going to be the bindable. Alright, let's see if this works. So just to summarize what's been going on here, the animation is failing because although it's animating the, it is successfully animating the radius property. When the radius is modified, it's not successfully invalidating the canvas to force a redraw. And the reason it wasn't successfully invalidating it is because although I have a event for when the segments property is changed or when the segments collection changes, assuming it's a collection, and what that does, among other things, is initialize the parent circle into which the segment belongs. That wasn't actually being invoked in this in the case of the default list being added to from XAML. That's my theory. So let's try it running now. What do you know? So it's it worked. Seems to be looping around though. That's strange. Validate method when I'm drawing it here. Alright. So this is all to try and understand why it's repeating the animation. Maybe there's one of the properties I specified said repeat. In fact, that's probably what it is. Let's try running anyway. F5. Okay, so that's, we can actually see it repeating, and let's look at the commit here. Repeat equals null. So there we go. That was why it was repeating. F5. So now it just does it once. Okay, so my name is Damien Mears. I'm going to put all this code on GitHub. So you'll, if you just look there, GitHub Damien Mears, it's not there yet, but it will be. Something called Xamarin Form Circle with various different examples. So I'm sure there are things I've done wrong or stupidly here, so feel free to email me. My email address is damien@mears.com, and you will find me on Twitter at twitter.com/DamienMears. There we go. Alright, hope this has been useful. Bye.